Another week, another Anthem news cycle. I'm not going to go through all the changes made in Anthem's patch of 1.0.4. It's still a mess. You're going to hear all kinds of updates and patches and more bugs as the months go by. It's just a sad story. However, journalists called Callum Marsh on non-gaming websites like the National Post, titled Under Culture, will give this opportunity to say what they think and miscategorize and misunderstand the scenario of Bioware, some gaming mishaps, some popular movies, and even historical examples, and get them wrong. First he hits up on, who knew it, The Last Jedi. It would be as though Disney issued an alternate version of Star Wars The Last Jedi in response to the complaints of a vocal minority of irate fans, and continued to order reshoots and re-edits until detractors were appeased. But in the world of gaming, pandering to a fickle audience is increasingly the norm. Hundreds of thousands of people on Rotten Tomatoes is not a vocal minority. The critics, however, are. Same on Metacritic. I'm guessing there's a lot more people who didn't even bother to leave a review because they hated it that much. He then talks about No Man's Sky, which was of course released as a skeleton of what was promised. 2 years later, after massive content additions, changes, and updates, it's now at least a bigger and better game. Hello Games simply promised the moon and didn't have the resources in time to deliver it. They lied. It's obvious. He then tells a story of Mass Effect 3's ending and the extended cut, but whether or not the free DLC was good or bad is completely irrelevant. According to him, it set a precedent. And he quotes, "Oh joy, this fellow Manveer Air," from an IGN interview. Well, let's not read that. If you have tens or hundreds of thousands of your customers telling you you did something wrong, good chance you did something wrong. When telling a good story, that's a hard thing to do. There's a greater chance that you're going to screw it up or not hit the mark. Especially when the bullseye you're trying to hit is telling a fan favorite story that no one wanted and was composed and told poorly because subversion is some sort of gold standard for good movie, or whose target is the moon, while lying about how to get there, or has to deal with hundreds of variables and is being composed by people who don't know writing. And when the same studio is trying to make something they have no business even attempting, you're going to get a lot of feedback. But when it comes to creative decisions, it's not merely unreasonable for an audience to make demands on a creator, but utterly antithetical to the nature of art. The idea should not even be entertained, let alone indulged. Displeasure is a risk inherent to every experience of art, just as it is the privilege of art to dissatisfy. It goes without saying that art shouldn't change to please an audience that happens to dislike it. Critics are born when crap is thrown their way. Welcome to this channel. The validity of their opinion comes about through evidence and argument. Why is it antithetical to tell an artist that they suck, and then pointing out with evidence and why? You two promised the moon and created a go-kart that couldn't even fly. You promised a meaningful ending and committed suicide. Then you tried to make a game after 6 years and failed so hard because you had no idea what you were doing, and you just wanted to watch the world burn. Then the journalist cites Stravinsky's Le Sacre du Printemps, The Rite of Spring. This is a big fiasco that happened in the first showing of this ballet. I'm not going to go into it, but essentially when you have Puccini attend the second showing and describes the choreography as ridiculous and the music cacophonous, the work of a madman, the public hissed, laughed, and applauded, you know there's something wrong with your show. You don't mess with Puccini. He then comments on a painting that I can barely make out what the hell this is, and then he mentions Doyle. Oh, Arthur Conan Doyle. But it was okay that Doyle brought Sherlock back because he didn't really care about writing Sherlock. It was no big deal. So yeah, it's all right that he just listened to fan feedback there. And the author finishes with this: to be a serious artist, whatever that means to him, means to invite the confusion and disappointment of those you can only hope will be pleased. Actively courting their approval by means of simply providing what they want isn't art, it's cowardice. Well, I guess Arthur Conan Doyle was a coward. I guess Casey Hudson and Mac Walters weren't just cowards, they were also stupid. Ryan Johnson is calling anyone who disagrees with him a man-baby. I guess the entire Hello Games staff were scared crapless, and rightfully so. I guess Puccini was a hack. I guess technical feedback is the only thing that's relevant, not creative feedback. I mean, you can't criticize Anthem's creative direction, even though that's the problem with the freaking story and the endgame and gameplay loop. When an artist makes crap, People need to tell them.